Please be seated.
Thank you, Brother Don. Thank you, Brother Larry. Good morning, church. Man, I love the song selection. I mean, all songs are good. Some songs are better than others. I love Holy Ground as that duo is one that will always give me chills. It is written in such a way. There are certain, again, I preached on this earlier, certain passages of the Bible, certain stories in the Bible that are more compelling, that point closer to Jesus, that get us closer to the heart of God. All of the Bible is good. Some is just more good, right? Like some of it just really kind of elevates it. And it's the way I feel about Holy Ground. So thank you, church, for singing along. That was a blessing to me. This past June, we did a joint worship service with the Ghanaian church. And I noticed just in their language, the way they talk, not within the tree, but within just the words they use as they talk about God, holiness is of much greater significance than the way I tend to talk about God. It's not that I don't think God is holy. It's just I tend, when I say, what is God? Maybe first word comes to your mind, I think God is love. Right? That comes right out of the Bible. So there's nothing wrong with that as an answer. But in my interaction, particularly with the African culture, has been the holiness of God. Brother Franklin has been praying with us and the leaders a lot more. We've talked more about the mission work in Ghana. And so regular, and this is a compliment to you, Franklin, so regular in his language about God is the holiness of God. Right? And we find that all throughout the Bible. From Genesis to Revelation, you will find the holiness of God. I just think in maybe our American culture, we've become so individualized, we don't necessarily want to recognize holiness culturally. I think that maybe impacts the church a little bit. And so we tend to talk about God's love, God's grace, his covering of our sin, not so much about holiness. And so I've had conversations with some other brothers and sisters, even just reflecting on my own preaching, that I don't tend to preach on holiness as much. Not that I'm opposed to holiness. It's just that's not my natural go-to. And so I decided, you know what, let's focus for a month just on the holiness of God. Let us spend time, dedicated time, on the holiness of God. That is central to God's identity. That should be important for the church to see God in such a way. God is holy. Perhaps one of the most famous passages of God's holiness, you see even the picture behind me, is going to be Exodus chapter 3. This is where Moses will encounter God in the form of this burning bush that is not consumed, a fire on a bush, and the bush just stays. I was surprised. I've been preaching for about 10 years, regularly here at Northland for 6.5, but about 10 years I've been doing some form of regular intermittent preaching. I have preached on Exodus 3 only in combination with Exodus 2, where I did kind of all of Moses' initial storyline. I preached that once in 2019 here. Otherwise, I've never actually just focused on Exodus 3. And so for a decade, as central of a passage as this is, I've never preached on it. So I said, you know what, if I'm going to spend time talking to you about the holiness of God, this is a foundational passage, Exodus chapter 3. For a brief history, if you're not all that familiar with the book of Exodus, you're not all that familiar with the story of Moses, Exodus chapter 3 is early on into what's called the Exodus, the way of God's people, the Jews, the Israelites, leaving Egypt, exodusing out of Egypt to move on towards the promised land. So that's kind of the story. Moses will be a very central character in all of this. To better understand just the context, God called Abraham, this is going all the way back to the book of Genesis, and the first book of the Bible. God calls Abraham, says, I'm going to make of you a nation, and your descendants will cover the earth. And so Abraham's going to have kids who have kids who have kids. We're going to get these 12 sons, and then they're all going to marry and have kids and have kids and have kids. They move to Egypt because of a famine, and one of those 12, Joseph, he ends up becoming pretty important. And they bring all these Israelites, probably a couple hundred, if I'm understanding, maybe close to 100, dozen sons and their spouses and their kids and their workers. So they bring all of them to Egypt. They get to Egypt. Now hundreds of years have passed, and the leaders of Egypt, they're called pharaohs. They're like our presidents or the kings, right? The pharaohs of Egypt, they don't know the story of Joseph, or at least this particular pharaoh does not know. Why are there so many Israelites? Because at this time now there's hundreds of thousands, potentially 1 million. Like there's so many descendants of Abraham, these Israelites. There's so many of them. And the Egyptian lord, Pharaoh, he's bothered by it, because what if these guys decided that they wanted to become Pharaoh? What if they wanted power? What if they wanted to overthrow us? And so he's going to enslave the whole nation, all these Israelites, going to put all of them into slavery. And even that's not quite good enough, because he's still worried. They keep having kids and growing, so he starts killing off all these baby boys. One of these babies, his name is Moses. His mother's going to put him in a basket. He's going to float down a river. The Pharaoh's, I think his daughter, is actually going to pick him up, raise him as her own son. And then he's trying to figure out his identity. He's raised as an Egyptian, but he is an Israelite, and he knows this. And so the slavery, and especially the abuse of the taskmasters, bothers him. And at one point, he intervenes, and he kills one of the taskmasters who's beating up on an Israelite. So he kills an Egyptian. And he's obviously worried about the repercussions of this, but even more so, when he sees the Israelites the next day, he sees two of them arguing. He says, why are you guys arguing against against one another? They say, what, you gonna kill us too, like you killed the Egyptian? And Moses goes, uh-oh, they know what I did, and if they know, someone else is gonna know, and so Moses flees. So he's about 40-ish years old, so he's an established man in society. He flees and just changes his life completely, turns it all upside down, and he goes off into what we would call the wilderness or the desert, uncivilized territory. There he finds a wife, and he joins into a new culture. There's a priest it's called Midian, and that becomes his father-in-law, Jethro. And so he starts working for him as a shepherd. So Moses is the adopted son of Pharaoh, raised in the palace, leaves all of that behind, leaves all of his people behind, and he goes out, serves as a shepherd. I think he does that for about 40 years. So now we're pushing 80. He has lived a good long life, and he is not bothered with any form of real leadership aside from murdering and fleeing, right? Like he's doing his thing. That's where we pick up in Exodus chapter 3. Moses is just a shepherd. He's just a shepherd doing his thing, living a, quote, normal life. Let's read Exodus chapter 3. We're going to read the whole chapter. I know it's a little bit of a longer chapter, and I'm going to give you some 4 takeaways from it. So this will be a longer sermon, but there's so much goodness in Exodus chapter 3, I couldn't just say, we'll do that another time. We're doing it all today. Exodus chapter 3. This is the story. Now Moses was keeping the flock of his father-in-law Jethro, the priest of Midian. And he led his flock to the west side of the wilderness, and he came to Horeb, the mountain of God. And the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a flame of fire out of the midst of a burning bush. He looked, and behold, the bush was burning, yet it was not consumed. And Moses said, I will turn aside and see this great sight, why the bush is not burned. When the Lord saw that he turned aside to see, God called to him out of the bush, Moses, Moses. He said, Here I am. Then he said, Do not come near. Take your sandals off your feet, for the place on which you are standing is holy ground. And he said, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. And Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look at God. Then the Lord said, I have surely seen the affliction of my people who are in Egypt. I have heard their cry because of their taskmasters. I know their sufferings. And I have come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians, and to bring them up out of that land to a good and broad land, a land flowing with milk and honey, to the place of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. And now behold, the cry of the people of Israel has come to me, and I have also seen the oppression with which the Egyptians oppress them. Come, I will send you to Pharaoh, that you may bring my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt. Moses said to God, Who am I, that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the children of Israel out of Egypt? He said, But I will be with you, and this will be a sign for you that I have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you shall serve God on this mountain. Then Moses said to God, If I come to the people of Israel and say to them, the God of your fathers has sent me. And they ask me, well, what is his name? What shall I say to them? God said to Moses, I am who I am. And he said, say this to the people of Israel, I am has sent you. God also said to Moses, say this to the people of Israel, the Lord, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob, has sent me to you. This is my name forever, and thus I am to be remembered throughout all generations. Go and gather the elders of Israel together and say to them, the Lord, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, of Isaac, and Jacob, has appeared to me, saying, I have observed you and what has been done to you in Egypt, and I promise that I will bring you up out of the affliction of Egypt to the land of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites, a land flowing with milk and honey. And they will listen to your voice. And you and the elders of Israel shall go to the king of Egypt and say to him, the Lord, the God of the Hebrews, has met with us, and now please let us go a 3 days' journey into the wilderness, that we may sacrifice to the Lord our God. But I know that the king of Egypt will not let you go unless compelled by a mighty hand. So I will stretch out my hand and strike Egypt with all the wonders that I will do in it. After that, he will let you go. And I will give this people favor in the sight of the Egyptians. And when you go, you shall not go empty. But each woman shall ask of her neighbor and any woman who lives in her house for silver and gold jewelry and for clothing. And you shall put them on your sons and on your daughters. So you shall plunder the Egyptians. There's a lot going on in this chapter. I recognize that. I cannot fully cover everything going on. That is what Bible commentaries are for. That is what Bible studies are for. But I can give you some insights. So today I broke it down for me 4 major insights that I would like to encourage you and to teach you about faith in our Lord, the one true God, the I am God. Let me start with just the way that this chapter catches the eye, right? Moses is living a normal life. He's just a shepherd, doing a shepherd thing. He's just living a normal life. Then something remarkable happens. And it says that he turns aside. That's the language, at least, that my Bible translation uses. It says that he turns aside. As I process this, the verses are going to happen back to back. We'll read that in a minute. But I want it to connect for you. The Lord sees when we turn aside. Because that's what happens. Moses turns aside, and then the Lord says, I see that you've turned aside. The Lord sees, I think this is practical even today, the Lord sees when we turn aside. We have a lot going on in life. Each of you, in all of your individual stories. If I asked you, what are you doing today? What are you doing this week? What are you doing this month? What are you doing for the next year? What are you doing for the next decade of your life? There'd be a lot. Each of you could have stories. What have you done for the last 10 years? You could have stories to tell and to tell and to tell. There's a lot that goes on in our life, but particularly in the day-to-day function of our lives. We've got to just live. We have to wake up. We got to shower, hopefully. We've got to get ready for the day. We've got to eat, hopefully. We've got to drink fluids, hopefully. I've got to do all the normal, mundane things of life. I need to work in order to make money, in order to pay bills. I need to interact with my friends in order to maintain relationship. I've got a parent. I've got to interact with my parents. I've got all these things to do. There are hobbies that I want to do. Man, there's just so much that takes up time in life. And we do all these things, all of them keeping our focus. And I'm not trying to put down, again, please, I hope showering and eating and drinking and interacting with friends and family are still good, important things for you to do. But what about the moments when we turn aside? When we turn aside and see God? What I love about this passage in Exodus, God has always been there. It's not like God stopped being there. God has always been there. But God did something remarkable, and Moses actually paid attention, and he sees it. And then God sees that he sees this. There are times where I'll come home or I'll be busy doing something, and so Amelia is watching TV. And again, she's 2 years old. She's just enthralled with this screen, right? Her eyes are just glued. And I'll come into the room and I'll say, hey, Amelia. And she won't always notice me. Like, she is so enthralled with the TV. Sometimes until I turn it off and say, hi there. And then it'll be like, oh, Daddy. And then a big old hug. And then we move on. But sometimes she doesn't even turn aside and notice me because something else is so captivating to her life. Okay, spiritually, we do that with the world sometimes. Our careers can captivate us. Our family planning can captivate us. Our social circle can captivate us. The world's political realm can captivate us. And we're so focused, we don't see the burning bush. Like, we just don't even know that it's there. It's there, but we don't always see it. And yet, I think biblically we see God is worth paying attention to. The greatness, the uniqueness of God, it is worth turning aside from all of the busyness that is going on. God is more attractive, more attention-worthy than any of the mundane things of life. We still have to do all those things. But spiritually, we need to be willing to turn aside and see God. And the cool thing is, God sees it. Let's go ahead and pull up those verses. This is, I think, kind of middle of verse 2 into verse 4. Moses looks, he sees this bush. Again, it's remarkable. It's a bush that is on fire, but it's not getting burnt up. I've spent a lot of time around campfires. I find it very fascinating to watch the wood go from its whole log structure into the coal format, like just watching it burn. It's very fascinating. There's a tree on fire, and that's not happening. There is, like, you'll watch the bark fall off. You'll see the little twigs ignite. You'll see the little pieces. And Moses turns aside and he sees a bush. And I'm not even sure it would have been weird that it's on fire. You know, lightning can happen and the heat can happen. He's out in the wilderness. A bush on fire is not necessarily going to capture one's attention per se. But he looks and he sees and goes, it's not acting normal. This fire is not like any fire I've ever seen. Like, maybe there's leaves that are covered in fire, but they're not being burnt up. The branches are not falling. There isn't this smoke going up the way I normally would see smoke go up. Something's weird. And instead of going, that's bizarre, and just moving on with life, sometimes we'll do that in our own lives, right? We see something and go, that's a little weird. We just keep going. But what if we turned aside? What if we see God at work and we turn aside? That's what Moses does. Moses says, I'm going to turn aside and see this great sight. Why the bush is not burned? He's just trying to figure out what's going on, right? It's just, he doesn't know it's God yet, but he's just trying to figure out what's going on. Verse 4, when the Lord saw that he turned aside to see, then he called out to him. But the Lord sees when we turn aside to see. Now, I want to remind you, in this busyness of life, do not forget Jesus Christ died on the cross for you. Don't forget that there is a Holy Spirit of God that lives inside of believers. Don't forget that you are a created being in the image of God. Turn aside from all the busyness of life and just look at the remarkable work that God has done in you and for you. Turn aside and see. I think sometimes we can wonder, where is God? Why don't I see him? Why don't I hear him? What's he got to say to me? But it's because we're not looking. We're living our lives as shepherds. We're just doing our thing. We're taking care of our earthly stuff, which is good, but we're not turning aside and seeing. And so how can we expect the Lord to really call out to us if we won't turn aside and see? So my encouragement to you is turn aside and see. Once you do that, you turn aside and see. The Lord sees you've turned aside. You get this special interaction where the presence of God is just made manifest. You have paid attention, now you know God is here. And the presence of God, the beauty of all this, the presence of God, it transforms normalcy into holiness. It took me a while to kind of craft where I wanted to go with this, but this is the holy ground passage. God takes the normal mundane of life and he makes it holy. And it's God's presence that does this, right? I don't think anyone loves staying in normalcy. Normalcy is not bad, right? The mundane of life is not bad. But when I say, what happened this week, you don't normally say I brushed my teeth, hopefully. You don't normally say I went to the bathroom, hopefully. Right? The mundane of life, that doesn't get brought into the conversation. The normal part isn't talked about. You might talk about, oh, we went and tried a new restaurant, and oh, I got a pay raise, and oh, I was able to meet up with an old friend, and you'll talk about the special that happens. When you pay more attention to God, the normal things of life can be transformed into holiness because of your awareness of God's presence. When God is in the picture, your job is no longer the same. The work ethic with which you work, the words with which you speak, like your very language is transformed from just normal talking about life into reflecting on the holiness and the greatness and the relevance of God. You can still be in a relationship, still be married, still be friends, but that relationship is transformed when you are aware of the presence of God. I'm going to take a look at this next passage here. Again, kind of just zooming in on verse 5. He says, "Do not come near, take your sandals off your feet, for the place on which you are standing is holy ground." All right, we're going to backtrack chronologically in our Bibles to the day before this event occurred. Is there anything special about that ground? Raise a hand. Do you think anyone, really special ground? Not that anyone gives me a ton of, interaction, but okay. So, maybe there's something unique, and it's called the mountain of God. Maybe there's an element there. But I think it's the presence of God, which, again, is always there, right? So in fairness, you could say everywhere is somewhat special, but it's the presence of God that transforms this ground. If Moses had walked there earlier and there's no burning bush, I think Moses could have stepped on the ground in his sandals and that not been a problem. I think he could have shown up, not seen the presence of God, and just gone about normal life. But when you recognize the presence of God, it transforms what is going on. The ground itself, the actual dirt, the particles, the rocks, the sand, the leaves, that's not holy. It is transformed into holy because the presence of God is there. So I'm going to extend that to modern day times. Is this building special? At least my answer would be it's just a building. If the church did not meet in this building, right? Let's say 50 years down the road, we sell this building and this becomes a supermarket. Is this building still holy? Is this special even as the Northland supermarket? I don't think so. It's just walls, it's cement, it's rock, it's wood, it's paint, it's just a building. And yet when we gather in here, would we consider this holy right now? I would, because I'm experiencing the holiness of God. Right? The presence of God transforms holiness. All right, so we're gonna push this out a little bit further. So we're going to go out into the park, and we're going to have church in the park. In fact, we're going to talk about this Saturday at 4:30 and 7:30, Blended Woods Metro Park, Sycamore Pavilion. If you show up there, it's just a normal park. Is there anything special about the Sycamore Pavilion on Friday at 4:30? I don't think so. But Saturday at 4:30, the church shows up. And now you can feel the presence of God. Okay, this to me is where holiness comes in. We begin to recognize just the normal things of life. When God is there, it transforms the normal stuff into holiness. Think about that song that is just a normal song, but it was played at your wedding, but it was played at a funeral, and now that song has a memory attached to it. It's just a normal t-shirt, but it was worn when your child was born. And so now there's a memory attached to the item. I didn't have it in my notes, but I'll mention a Bluey episode because we now watch Bluey now that we have a 2-year-old, right? This little kid's TV show. She's talking about this little toy car. There's nothing special about this toy car. And it's gotten old and the wheels are falling off. It's time to get a new one, but the mom doesn't want to get a new one because that car is special because they've had that for so many memories. Makes the car special. There's nothing inherently special about the car. It's just a car. But all the memories make it special. See, when we are aware to the holiness of God, it makes God's presence felt in the normal things of life. Your normal life is transformed into a holy life in submission to a holy God because you believe in his presence, because you have turned aside from the normal and you have seen the holiness of God. What makes God so holy is that he is the I am God. Right? Let me make sure I get some actual time talking about this. God is holy because he is the I am. When you read your Bibles, particularly the Old Testament, as you flip through it, some of your translations, many of your translations, you will see the phrase Lord, L-O-R-D, all capitalized. Sometimes even like a font lower or like a size lower, but it's all caps. You'll see the word Lord. That is generally going to be correctly translated from the Hebrew word Yahweh, or Jehovah, which is Yod He Vav He in Hebrew, which is how we get, guys, this is the Germans' fault that we got Jehovah out of all this, okay? So the Y became a J and it just became a mess. But we get these letters that stand for the I am God. So when Moses asks, who are you? Technically, it's not Yahweh because he uses the I am, and Yahweh is actually he is. Again, grammar makes this complicated. But the point of the matter, when he reveals who he is to Moses, the I am God, the Yahweh God, when he says that, that becomes his identity. And he says, this is what makes me special. I just am. So you go back to the first book of the Bible, Genesis. He never reveals himself as Yahweh, as the I am God to Abraham, at least not that we see. You will see the word Lord, L-O-R-D, all caps. You will see that in Genesis, but he never really reveals it. Moses gets the revelation. This is who I am. I am. Now, there are a lot of names for various gods. Baal, I think Marduk, Asherah, there's Tiamat, there's all these different gods. So Moses is saying, which God are you? He says, I just am. And then this is what we get. Let's go ahead and pull up verses 13 and following. This is what we get when we zoom in. I know it's a lot of text, so if you have your Bibles, that might be easier for you. But it's easier for me to say, when Moses says, if I come to them and say, who are you, right? They're going to want to know. God's response is, I am who I am. And he goes on to talk about this when he says, I am has sent you. Say to these people, it's the Lord, the God of your fathers. Okay, so now we're actually going back in time. So he's I am presently, but he's also the God of back then. Hence we'll sing sometimes in our songs, the God who was, the God who is, the God who is to come. But he's using that in this passage. I am the God of the past, the God of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. Jesus will use that argument later on when he says, God says he is the God of Abraham, not he was the God of Abraham. Meaning that all those dead people are still alive with God because God simply is. God always has been. So he's the God of the past. He's the God of the present. And we get there at the end of verse 6. This is my name forever. Actually, I think I have the wrong title up there. It's verse 13. The verses are correct. I just have the wrong heading. But it's the end of verse 15, right? This is my name forever. Thus I am to be remembered throughout all generations. So forever is going into the future. God of the past, God of the present, God of the future. How do you describe a God who always has been, always is, and always will be? Well, God says, this is how I'll describe it. This is my name. I am. Moses asks, who sent me? It's a great question to ask. Very appropriate of Moses to do so. But God's answer is just, I am. Talk about a holy God. There are no gods that can say that. Go read about the story of Baal, about Tiamat, about Kronos, about Zeus. They've all got origin stories. They came from somewhere, and a lot of them have an end somewhere along the historical line. Our God, the I am God, has simply always been. In fact, he's been God before time began. Talk about something to really wrap your head around. Like, how can you be before time? That's who God is. He just simply is. God is. That makes God holy. Right? That makes God holy. He is unique and different than any other God you could possibly think about. God is holy. He's holy because of his identity. He is the I am God. Well, what does our holy God do? Well, this is where I'll wrap things up today. Our holy God does holy work. This was really cool for me, again, as I'm just kind of putting the pieces of the puzzle together. Our God, our holy God, does holy work. If you're going to be holy, you're not going to do mundane things. I think that applies even to our lives. If we are going to be God's holy people, we cannot just do mundane work. We've got holy work to do because our holy God is out there doing holy work, and we are his people. You read any narrative section of the Bible, so narrative being story-driven. Read any of these stories that occur in the Bible, narrative sections of the Bible. So not the Psalms, not the Song of Solomon, not Ecclesiastes. Read the stories, not the epistles of Paul. Read the stories, the four Gospels of Jesus. Read what's going on in the times of Samuel and David and Saul and Solomon and Ruth and Esther. Read the stories, and you see God doing remarkable holy work. He is sending fire and brimstone. He is flooding the world. He is stopping the sun. He is crumbling walls. He is parting the sea. He's raising Jesus from the dead. Like, you read the narratives, the actual historical accounts, what is happening, and God is doing holy work. If he's the I am God, that means he is still I am God today. He's not the God of the future when we all die and go to heaven. He is still the I am God today, September 2025. If you're watching on YouTube, you can subscribe to our channel. So this might be in the future. But whatever year it is, God is still I am. And this is what the I am God does. Let's pull up, we'll close. Let me just highlight this reading here. He says, I know that the king of Egypt will not let you go. Well, that's pretty holy work. If he knows what other people's thoughts and actions are going to be, that's pretty remarkable. And he says, I will stretch out my hand and strike Egypt. Okay, that's pretty holy work. A stretching of a hand and striking an entire nation, that's pretty holy work. And all the wonders that I will do. Again, if you can do wonders, you're doing some pretty holy things. And I will give this people favor on the side of the Egyptians. If you can change people's viewpoints, you can change a nation, impact it, and you know all these people's thoughts and experiences, that's pretty holy work. God knows what is unknowable. Man, that is holy work. God is striking Egypt, the enemies of his people. That's holy work. God is giving his people favor. That is holy work. This is what the holy God does. He does holy work. I'm going to circle back to my first sermon point as we wrap up. When God is doing holy work, are you turning aside and seeing? Because if he's really the I am God, that's our belief in this, right? If he's really the I am God, then today, 2025, God is still doing holy work. Are you turning aside and seeing the holy work of God? If we do that, if we as a church would do that, if you individually would turn aside from the normalcy, the mundane of life, if you turn aside and you see the holy work of God that he's doing because he's a holy God, the I am God, if you see that, if the church would see that, he will see you. He will see us. And we enter into a relationship where normalcy is transformed into holiness, and we get to experience a radically different life that the world will never be able to offer you. There is no other religion, there is no other philosophy, there is no other teaching that can offer you the transformative power that God's holiness offers. The beauty for the Christian story is this gets culminated in Jesus Christ the Son, where now you get grace everlasting. Now I can circle back. God's holiness circles us right back to grace and love. God, as the holy God, takes on the holy work of redeeming humanity. Hence we get John 3:16. God sent his Son so that all who believe would have eternal life. Our holy God doing holy work. It is up to you to turn aside. Do you feel like you've turned aside? Or is that something that you still need to do? We close most of our services together with an invitation. If you would like prayers of support as you go through the process of turning aside, maybe you have turned aside and you are struggling. Maybe you know people in life who really need to turn aside and you want prayers for them. We're going to offer an invitation. If we as a church could be praying for you or for others, you're welcome to come forward as we stand and as we sing.